A waitress carried groceries for an old lady. 3 weeks later, her billionaire son's lawyers accused her of a crime that could destroy her life. Rachel Morrison stood in a Cedar Rapids courtroom, her waitress uniform still smelling like coffee and bacon grease, while 3 attorneys in $1,000 suits told the judge she was a criminal. They said she manipulated a vulnerable elderly woman, exploited her loneliness, calculated every smile, every kind word, every moment of compassion to steal an $8 million fortune. The lead attorney, Marcus Chin, didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His briefcase probably cost more than Rachel made in 6 months. "Your Honor," he said, "this woman identified a target and executed a scheme." Rachel's hands shook in her lap. She'd carried 4 grocery bags across a parking lot. That was her crime. But who was the old lady? Eleanor Chun had lived in Cedar Rapids for 60 years. She ate at Palmer's Diner every Wednesday at 3 in the afternoon. She ordered tea. She watched people. Nobody knew she was worth millions. Nobody knew she was dying. And nobody knew she'd been searching for someone specific, someone who would help when nothing was owed, when no one was watching, when kindness cost more than it gave. Rachel Morrison had no idea that missing her bus that cold November afternoon would land her in front of a judge. She had no idea Eleanor Chen's nephew needed that inheritance to save his failing law firm. She had no idea that carrying groceries could spark a legal war. 3 weeks earlier, Rachel Morrison had made a choice that would cost her everything she thought she knew about fairness. If you want to see how an ordinary waitress defeated a corporate attorney using nothing but the truth, subscribe. Because this story proves that moral authority can shatter legal power. Rachel Morrison's alarm screamed at 5 in the morning. She slapped it silent in the dark. Her studio apartment was cold. The heat didn't work right, and her landlord kept promising to fix it. She'd stopped asking 3 months ago. Her feet hurt before she even stood up. That's what happened when you work 12-hour shifts in shoes with worn-out soles. She couldn't afford new ones yet. Maybe next month. She'd been saying that for 6 months. She pulled on her Palmer's Diner uniform in the bathroom. The mirror showed a 29-year-old woman who looked 35. Dark circles under her eyes, hair that needed cutting. She tied it back and didn't look too close. There was a stack of mail on her kitchen counter she hadn't opened in a week. The envelope on top had a red stamp. Medical Billing Department. $47,000. That number lived in her chest like a stone. Her mother's cancer treatment. 2 years of hospital visits, medications, specialists who couldn't save her anyway. Rachel had dropped out of nursing school in her final semester to take care of her mom. She told herself it was temporary. She told herself she'd go back. Her nursing textbooks sat in her closet under a winter coat she never wore. She couldn't look at them without feeling like she'd failed. Some days she thought about selling them, but that felt like giving up for real. The bus to Palmer's Diner took 40 minutes. Rachel knew the route by heart. She knew which stops took longest, which drivers ran late, which seats had broken springs. She worked the morning shift at the diner, 6 to 3. Then she caught another bus across town to her second job at Stop and Go convenience store for to midnight. 2 jobs, 16-hour days, 6 days a week. Her bank account still hit 0 every month. Palmer's Diner smelled like bacon grease and coffee. The kind of place where the vinyl booths had duct tape patches and the countertop had scratches from decades of forks and knives. Rachel tied her apron and started her shift. She knew every regular by name. Tom came in at 6:30, ordered scrambled eggs and rye toast, asked about the weather. She remembered his grandson was having surgery next week. "How's little Michael doing?" she asked while pouring his coffee. Tom's face lit up. "Surgery's on Thursday. Doc say he'll be fine." "I'll be thinking about him," Rachel said. She meant it. At 7, Maria arrived for her shift. She was new, still learning the register. Rachel stayed an extra 20 minutes off the clock to help her count the drawer. The manager, Frank Palmer, pretended not to notice. He was a decent man running a struggling business. He couldn't afford to pay Rachel for training time. The lunch rush hit at 11. Rachel moved through the diner like she'd done it 1,000 times. She had refill coffee without being asked, remember who wanted ketchup, smile at the truckers who left $2 tips on $10 checks. Some of the other waitresses complained about cheap customers. Rachel didn't. She'd been the customer counting coins for a meal before. She understood. An elderly man came in alone and sat in the corner booth. He ordered soup and couldn't open the crackers. His hands shook too much. Rachel opened them without making it a big deal. Just set them on his napkin and walked away. Let him keep his dignity. The man left a $5 tip on a $7 check. Rachel split it with Maria because Maria had 3 kids and an ex-husband who didn't pay support. At 2:30, Rachel's feet screamed. She'd been standing for 8 hours. Her lower back ached. She had 30 minutes left on her shift, then a 40-minute bus ride to her second job. If she missed the 3:15 bus, the next one didn't come until 4. She'd be late. Stop and Go had a 3 strikes policy for tardiness. She was already on strike 2. At 2:50, Frank told her she could clock out early. Slow day. Rachel untied her apron and grabbed her coat. She walked toward the front door and saw something through the window that made her stop. An old woman stood in the parking lot. Elder, Asian, small frame. She held 4 grocery bags, 2 in each hand. The bags looked heavy. The woman's hands shook as she tried to lift them into the trunk of an old sedan. She was alone. The November wind whipped her thin coat. She struggled with the bags, set them down, tried again. Her face showed determination, the kind that said she'd been taking care of herself for a long time and didn't plan to stop now. Rachel checked her watch. 2:53. The bus came at 3:15. If she helped, she'd need 5 minutes. Maybe 10 if the woman wanted to talk. She'd miss her bus. She'd be late to Stop and Go. Strike 3. But the woman's hands were shaking. Rachel pushed open the diner door and walked into the cold. "Ma'am, can I help you with those?" The old woman looked up. Her face was weathered, her eyes sharp. She studied Rachel for a moment. "I can manage." "I know you can," Rachel said, "but I've got a minute. Let me get them for you." The woman hesitated. Then she nodded. Rachel picked up all 4 bags. They were heavy. Canned goods, milk, bread, the basics. She loaded them into the trunk carefully, making sure the eggs wouldn't break. The old woman watched her with an expression Rachel couldn't read. "Thank you," the woman said. Her voice had an accent. Chinese, maybe. She reached into her purse and pulled out a $5 bill. She pressed it into Rachel's hand. "Oh no," Rachel said. "I don't need." Kindness should never go unrewarded. The woman's grip was surprisingly strong. "Please." Rachel took the bill. It felt wrong to argue with someone who clearly meant it as a matter of principle. "Thank you." The woman got in her car and drove away. Rachel stood in the parking lot and checked her watch. 3:07. She'd missed the bus. She pulled out her phone and called Stop and Go. Her manager answered on the 3rd ring. "I'm going to be late," Rachel said. "I'm sorry. I missed my bus." There was a long pause. "Rachel, this is your 3rd time." "I know. I'm really sorry. I'll be there by 4. I promise." Another pause. "We'll talk about it when you get here." Rachel hung up. She stood in the empty parking lot and looked at the $5 bill in her hand. There was something written on it. A phone number in blue ink on the white margin. Probably a mistake. Someone using the bill to remember a number. She folded it and put it in her pocket. She didn't think about the old woman again. She didn't know her name was Eleanor Chun. She didn't know Eleanor was worth $8 million. She didn't know Eleanor had been coming to Palmer's Diner every Wednesday for 6 months, watching Rachel, testing her, searching for someone specific. She didn't know that carrying 4 grocery bags would change her entire life. Rachel got to Stop and Go at 4:05. Her manager, Derek, was waiting by the register with his arms crossed. "We need to talk in the back." She knew what was coming. "Derek, I'm really sorry. It won't happen again. You said that last time." He wouldn't look at her. "I like you, Rachel. You're a good worker. But I can't keep making exceptions. Corporate's on me about tardiness across all shifts. I helped someone, an old lady with groceries. She couldn't." "I get it. I do." Derek ran his hand through his hair. "But I've got rules. This is strike 3. I have to let you go." Rachel's stomach dropped. "Please. I need this job. I can't. I'm sorry." He handed her an envelope. Final paycheck. For hours docked for today. She took the bus home in a daze. For hours of pay gone. An entire job gone. She'd lost income she couldn't afford to lose because she'd carried 4 grocery bags. She sat on her couch in the dark apartment and pulled out the $5 bill. The phone number was still there in blue ink. She stared at it. Then she threw it in the trash. What good was $5 when she'd just lost $400 a week? 3 weeks passed like they always did. Rachel picked up extra shifts at Palmer's Diner. Frank let her work doubles. When the other waitresses called in sick, she applied to 6 other jobs. No callbacks. Her rent was due in 4 days, and she was $200 short. The medical billing company called twice. She didn't answer. What was she supposed to tell them? That she couldn't pay? They already knew. She was pouring coffee for the breakfast rush when Maria brought her a piece of certified mail. "This came for you," Maria said. "Looks official." Rachel took it. Her name was typed on the front. Rachel Morrison, Palmer's Diner, Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Return address was a law office downtown. Walsh and Associates. Her first thought was debt collectors. They'd found her at work. She shoved the envelope in her apron pocket and finished her shift. At 2:30, during her break, she opened it in the diner's back booth. The letter was on heavy paper. Expensive. Professional. "Dear Ms. Morrison, I am writing to inform you of a matter requiring your immediate attention regarding the estate of Eleanor Chun, who passed away on December 4th. Mrs. Chen's last will and testament names you as the sole beneficiary of her estate. Please contact my office at your earliest convenience to discuss the details of this inheritance. Sincerely, David Walsh, estate attorney." Rachel read it 3 times. The words didn't make sense. Eleanor Chin. She knew that name. She'd seen it somewhere. Then she remembered the old woman. The grocery bags. 3 weeks ago. Her hands started shaking. She pulled out her phone and called the number on the letterhead. A receptionist answered. "Walsh and Associates." "Hi, I got a letter. About an inheritance? My name is Rachel Morrison. One moment, please." The hold music was classical. Soft piano. Rachel's heart hammered. This had to be a mistake. Some kind of scam. People didn't just inherit money from strangers they helped one time. A man's voice came on the line. Calm. Professional. "Ms. Morrison, this is David Walsh. Thank you for calling. I've been trying to locate you." "I don't understand," Rachel said. "The letter says..." "It says you're the beneficiary of Eleanor Chen's estate." "That's correct. But I didn't know her. I helped her with groceries once. That's all." Mrs. Chen was very specific in her instructions. She left her entire estate to the young woman from Palmer's Diner, who helped with groceries on November 13th. "That's you correct." "Yes. But the estate is valued at $8.3 million. The diner tilted. Rachel grabbed the edge of the table. "What? $8.3 million. Mrs. Chun was a very private woman, but she had significant real estate holdings and investments. She left everything to you." Rachel couldn't breathe. "This is a mistake. This has to be a mistake." "I assure you it's not. I need you to come to my office so we can begin the paperwork. Are you available tomorrow?" I work tomorrow. What time is your shift over?" 3. "Come at 3:30. I'll have everything prepared." Rachel hung up. She sat in the booth and stared at the letter. $8.3 million. The number was so big it didn't feel real. That was enough to pay off her medical debt. Enough to go back to nursing school. Enough to never work a double shift again. Enough to stop being tired all the time. Maria walked by with a coffee pot. "You okay? You look pale." "I'm fine," Rachel said, but her voice sounded far away. Frank called her name from the kitchen. "Rachel, table 6 needs their check." She stood up. Her legs felt strange. She walked through the diner like normal, delivered the check, refilled coffee, smiled at customers. But inside her head, the same thought kept repeating. $8.3 million. A woman she'd met once for 5 minutes had left her $8.3 million. It didn't make sense. Why would someone do that? Tom, the regular with the grandson, waved her over. "Rachel, you feeling all right? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I'm okay," she said. "Just tired." She finished her shift in a daze. Went home. Sat on her couch. Read the letter again. $8.3 million. She thought about her mother. About the medical bills. About dropping out of school. About every morning she'd woken up at 5 a.m. in pain. Every bus ride. Every double shift. Every time she'd chosen between groceries and electricity. This was the answer. This was the miracle she'd stopped believing in. Rachel thought $8.3 million was the answer to every prayer she'd ever whispered. She had no idea it was about to become evidence in a battle that would destroy her reputation. David Walsh's office was downtown in a brick building that smelled like old wood and leather. He was in his 50s, gray hair, kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He shook Rachel's hand and gestured to a chair. "Before we discuss the legal details," he said, "I think you should see Eleanor's home. It will help you understand." They drove to a quiet neighborhood on the east side of Cedar Rapids. Middle-class houses with small yards. Kids' bikes on sidewalks. Nothing fancy. David pulled up to a modest ranch-style home with faded blue siding. A for-sale sign stood in the yard. "This is worth $8 million?" Rachel asked. "The house is worth maybe $150,000. The fortune is elsewhere." David unlocked the front door. Eleanor lived simply, very simply. Inside, the house felt frozen in time. Floral wallpaper from the 70s. Furniture that had been carefully maintained for decades. Everything was clean, but old. The living room had a worn couch, a television from the 90s, shelves filled with books. Rachel walked slowly through the space, trying to understand. Photographs covered one entire wall. A young Chinese woman in a 1960s dress standing in front of the Golden Gate Bridge. The same woman, older, holding a baby. A little girl in school pictures progressing through the years. A teenager in a graduation gown. "That's Eleanor," David said, pointing to the young woman. "And that's her daughter, Lily." Rachel stared at the photographs. Eleanor had been beautiful. Strong cheekbones, determined eyes. The kind of face that had seen hard things and survived them. On a side table, Rachel found immigration documents under glass. Eleanor Chin. Arrived San Francisco, 1962. There were other papers. Naturalization certificate. Property deeds. Investment statements showing portfolios worth millions. All of it carefully organized in folders. She bought real estate in the Bay Area in the 70s and 80s, David explained. Held it for decades. Invested wisely. She lived off a small portion and let the rest grow. In the bedroom, Rachel found more of Eleanor's life. A simple bed with a hand-stitched quilt. A nightstand with reading glasses and a book. And next to the book, a journal. Brown leather, worn at the edges. Rachel picked it up. "Can I? You're the executor of the estate. Everything here is yours now." She opened the journal. Eleanor's handwriting was precise, small, controlled. Rachel flipped to a random page and saw her own name underlined. Rachel Morrison. Her breath caught. David pointed to the dresser. "There's more." She kept records of everything. Rachel found a folder labeled Palmer's Diner. Inside were receipts. Every Wednesday at 3 p.m. for 6 months. Tea. $2 plus tip. Always the same. She'd been coming to the diner for half a year. Rachel had served her maybe a dozen times and never realized it was the same woman. "She was watching me," Rachel whispered. "Yes," David said. "She was looking for someone specific. And she found you." Rachel sat on Eleanor's couch and opened the journal to the first page dated 6 months ago. June 18th. Returned to Palmer's Diner. The waitress is young, efficient. She remembered the truck driver's name from last week. Small thing, but noteworthy. Rachel flipped forward. June 25th. The waitress gave her own sandwich to a homeless man. The manager told her to make him leave. She bought him lunch instead and told the manager she'd pay for it herself. She didn't know I was watching from the corner booth. Rachel's hands trembled. She remembered that day. The homeless man's name was Carl. He came in sometimes when it was cold. Frank didn't like it, said it was bad for business. Rachel had given Carl her lunch and clocked out early so Frank wouldn't make a scene. She kept reading. July 2nd. Watched the waitress train the new girl. Stayed 20 minutes past her shift, off the clock, to help her count the register. The manager pretended not to notice. The waitress didn't ask for credit. That was Maria. Rachel had helped her because Maria was struggling and needed the job. July 16th. The waitress asked the regular about his grandson's surgery. Remembered the child's name. Remembered the date. The man almost cried. Small kindnesses matter most to people who receive them rarely. Tom, his grandson Michael. Rachel had asked because she cared, not because anyone was watching. Entry after entry. Eleanor had documented Rachel's life. Not the big moments. The small ones. The moments when Rachel was tired and helped anyway. When she was broke and shared anyway. When she was invisible and stayed kind anyway. August 8th. The waitress split her tips with the new girl. Even though the new girl's tables weren't hers to serve. She thinks no one notices these things. I notice everything. September 12th. Watched her help an elderly man open his crackers. She didn't make it obvious. Let him keep his dignity. She understands that poverty and age are not character flaws. Rachel's vision blurred. She wiped her eyes. October 30th. The waitress looks exhausted. Dark circles. Worn shoes. I heard her tell another waitress she works 2 jobs. Medical debt from her mother's cancer. She dropped out of nursing school to be a caregiver. She helps everyone else while drowning herself. Eleanor had known. She'd known everything. Rachel flipped to the final entry. November 13th. The day before Eleanor died. Tomorrow I will test her. I will struggle with groceries in the parking lot at the exact time her shift ends. She will have to choose between helping me and catching her bus to her second job. If she stops, if she helps when it costs her something real, I will know I found her. I've been searching for someone like my Lily. Someone who chooses compassion over convenience. Someone who helps without witnesses. Tomorrow I will know if Rachel Morrison is that person. The next line was written in shakier handwriting, like Eleanor had been tired or emotional. If you're reading this, Rachel, it means I'm gone. And it means you helped me. It means you chose kindness even when it hurt. That's all I needed to know. The money is yours. Use the way Lily would have. Help people system has decided don't matter. Rachel closed the journal. Her throat was tight. Eleanor hadn't left her money because of one act of kindness. She left it because Rachel had proven, over 6 months of being watched, that she helped people when nothing was owed and no one was watching. David stood in the doorway. She was very deliberate in her choice. I didn't know, Rachel said. I didn't know she was watching. That's exactly why she chose you. Rachel spent the next hour going through Eleanor's papers. She found letters in a wooden box on the closet shelf. Old letters, yellowed with age. Some were in Chinese, others in careful English. One letter was from 1962, addressed to someone named Wei. Eleanor's handwriting, younger, less controlled. I am in San Francisco now. The city is beautiful and terrifying. People stare. They say things I pretend not to understand. I work in a laundry. My hands are raw from the chemicals. But I am grateful for the work. I am saving money. Someday I will own property. Someday I will be safe. Another letter from 1968, addressed to the same person. I'm married, Thomas Chin. He is kind. We have a small apartment. I am pregnant. I never thought I would have this kind of happiness in America. I was wrong to doubt. A letter from 1971. Thomas died last month. Heart attack. Lily is 3 years old. I am alone again, but I have her. I will work 3 jobs if I have to. She will have opportunities one never had. Rachel found photographs of Lily. A beautiful girl with her mother's cheekbones and bright, determined eyes. School pictures. Birthday parties. A college acceptance letter from UCLA. A photograph of Lily at a protest holding a sign. Healthcare is a human right. There was a newspaper clipping from 1998. The headline read, "Local advocate killed in traffic accident." Rachel's stomach dropped as she read, Lily Chen, 29, a healthcare advocate known for her work fighting medical debt exploitation, was killed yesterday when her vehicle was struck by a drunk driver on Interstate 80. The driver, Brandon Hartwell, 24, is the son of Hartwell Industries CEO Robert Hartwell. He was arrested at the scene. Rachel flipped to the next clipping. Hartwell charges reduced to reckless driving. And another. Hartwell sentenced to community service, probation. No jail time. No real consequences. Money had protected him. She found Eleanor's journal from 1998. The entries were brief, pain written in every word. They let him go. Lily is dead. And they let him go because his father is rich. The lawyers made it disappear. I sat in that courtroom and watched them turn my daughter's death into a negotiation. This is what wealth does. It protects people who deserve punishment. The entries stopped for months. When they resumed, Eleanor's tone had changed. I have been thinking about what Lily believed. She fought against a system that crushes people who can't afford to fight back. Medical debt. Legal debt. The weight of poverty that traps good people in cycles they can't escape. She died trying to change that system. I will not let her death mean nothing. Another entry from 2003. I am wealthy now. The real estate investments have grown beyond what I imagined. But I will not leave this money to people who will hoard it. I will not let it sit in banks. I will find someone who understands what Lily understood. That wealth is a responsibility. That it should protect the vulnerable, not the powerful. Rachel's hand shook. Eleanor hadn't been searching for just anyone. She'd been searching for someone who would use money the way her daughter had wanted to use it. Someone who would fight for people the system ignored. Eleanor had watched Rachel help people for 6 months, had seen her give away tips she couldn't afford to lose, had seen her stay late to help coworkers, had seen her choose kindness when it cost her. And Eleanor had decided Rachel was the person Lily would have chosen. This wasn't a gift. It was a mission. Rachel was still sitting in Eleanor's living room when her phone rang. David Walsh. Rachel, I need to tell you something. Eleanor's nephew has been notified of the will. His name is Marcus Chin. He's a corporate attorney in Chicago. He's not happy about the inheritance going to you. I didn't even know she had family. Marcus is her late husband's brother's son. He's had minimal contact with Eleanor for years, but he's claiming family rights to the estate. He's already contacted me about contesting the will. Rachel's stomach dropped. Can he do that? He can try. Iowa law allows family members to contest if they can prove incompetence or undue influence. I'm warning you now, Marcus Chen is a very aggressive litigator. He doesn't lose cases. 2 days later, Marcus Chen walked into Palmer's Diner at noon. Rachel was refilling coffee when she saw them. 3 men in expensive suits. They looked wrong in the diner, like they'd walked into the wrong building by mistake. The lead man was in his mid-40s, tall, sharp features, cold eyes. He scanned the room until he found her. Rachel Morrison? She set down the coffee pot. Yes, I'm Marcus Chen, Eleanor Chen's nephew. He didn't offer his hand. These are my associates. We need to talk. Rachel glanced at Frank behind the counter. He was watching, concerned. The other customers were staring. I'm working, Rachel said. This will only take a minute. Marcus pulled out a chair at an empty table and sat without waiting for permission. His associates remained standing. I've been informed that my aunt left her estate to you. That's unfortunate, because I'm here to inform you that I'm contesting the will. Rachel's pulse hammered. I didn't ask for this. I didn't even know. My aunt had dementia. She was not competent to make decisions about an $8 million estate. You took advantage of a vulnerable elderly woman. That's not true. I helped her with groceries one time. Marcus smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. You expect me to believe that my aunt left her entire fortune to a stranger who helped her carry groceries? That's absurd. You identified a vulnerable target and executed a scheme. I didn't scheme anything. Then explain why my aunt, who I visited regularly. He paused. Rachel had the sense he was lying. Suddenly changed her will to benefit a waitress she barely knew. I don't know. I can't explain it. Exactly. Marcus stood. He pulled an envelope from his jacket and placed it on the table. This is a cease and desist letter. You are not to access any of my aunt's assets, properties, or accounts. I am filing a formal contest with the court. You have 48 hours to retain legal counsel. Rachel stared at the envelope. I don't understand. Why are you doing this? Because my aunt's assets belong with her family, not with strangers who perform calculated acts of manipulation. He turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. I've contacted the local news. They're very interested in this story. Waitress accused of exploiting elderly woman for millions. It makes for compelling television. He walked out. His associates followed. Rachel stood in the middle of the diner, shaking. Every customer was watching. Maria hurried over. Rachel, what was that? I don't know, Rachel whispered. Her phone buzzed. David Walsh. She answered. Rachel, Marcus just called me. He's serious about this. He's filing tomorrow. He said I exploited her. He said she had dementia. I know. Listen to me carefully. Marcus Chun has never lost a case. He's one of the most aggressive litigators in the Midwest. And there's something else you need to know. David's voice was grim. His law firm is in financial trouble. They lost a massive malpractice lawsuit 6 months ago. They owe over $3 million in damages. He needs this inheritance to save his firm. So this isn't about his aunt. This is about survival. Marcus will do whatever it takes to win, and he has resources you don't have. Money, lawyers, connections. Rachel sat down in the booth. The cease and desist letter sat in front of her. What do I do? You fight, or you walk away. But if you fight, you need to understand this is going to get ugly. He's going to destroy your reputation. He's going to make you look like a criminal. Are you prepared for that? Rachel thought about Eleanor's journal, about Lily, about the mission Eleanor had given her. Yes, she said, I'm prepared. But she wasn't. She had no idea what was coming. Marcus Chin filed the lawsuit 3 days later. The court documents were 47 pages long. Rachel sat in David Walsh's office and tried to read them, but the legal language made her head spin. Words like testamentary capacity and undue influence and fiduciary manipulation. It all meant the same thing. Marcus was calling her a criminal. He's claiming Eleanor had dementia, David said, that she wasn't competent to make decisions about her estate. And he's claiming you exploited her vulnerability for financial gain. But I didn't know she had money. I didn't know anything. I know, but he's going to argue you calculated everything, that you identified her as a target and manipulated her over time. Rachel's hand shook. How does he plan to prove that? David flipped through the documents. He's hired a medical expert, Dr. Patricia Hendricks, a neurologist. She's reviewed Eleanor's medical records and is prepared to testify that Eleanor showed signs of cognitive decline in her final months. Did she? Eleanor was 82. She forgot appointments occasionally, repeated herself sometimes. Normal aging, in my opinion. But Dr. Hendricks is going to frame it as evidence of incompetence. The lawsuit hit the news the next morning. Rachel was pouring coffee at Palmer's Diner when Tom, her regular, held up his phone. Rachel, you're on TV. She looked. Channel 9 News. The headline read, Waitress accused of manipulating dying woman for millions. There was a photograph of her, a screenshot from Palmer's Diner's website, smiling in her uniform. Below it, a photo of Eleanor, gray-haired and serious. The reporter's voice was grave. A Cedar Rapids waitress is at the center of a controversial inheritance case. Marcus Chin, a Chicago attorney, claims his Aunt Eleanor Chin was manipulated by Rachel Morrison, a Palmer's Diner employee who now stands to inherit $8.3 million. Chin alleges his aunt suffered from dementia and was targeted by Morrison in what he calls a calculated scheme. Rachel's face burned. Every customer in the diner was staring. The reporter continued. Morrison helped carry groceries for the elderly woman just weeks before Chen's death. Chen's legal team argues this was not an act of kindness, but the final step in a months-long manipulation. Maria touched Rachel's arm. That's not true. Tell me that's not true. It's not, Rachel whispered. I swear. But the whispers had already started. Rachel heard them between tables. Did you know about this? She always seemed so nice. You never really know people. By noon, the story was everywhere. Online news sites, social media. The comment section was brutal. Another scammer preying on vulnerable seniors. She saw an opportunity and took it. Disgusting. These people are vultures, waiting for old people to die so they can steal their money. Rachel tried to keep working, but her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Frank pulled her aside during the lunch rush. Rachel, I need to ask you something. Are you in some kind of trouble? It's not what they're saying, Frank. I helped her one time. That's all. Frank looked uncomfortable. I believe you. I do. But customers are asking questions. And, look, I can't have this kind of attention on the diner. It's bad for business. Are you firing me? No. God, no. But maybe you should take some time off until this blows over. Rachel went home early. Her phone was blowing up with messages from numbers she didn't recognize. Reporters. She turned it off. The next morning, her second job called. Stop and go. The manager, Derek, sounded apologetic. Rachel, I'm really sorry, but I'm letting you go. The district manager saw the news. He says we can't have this kind of publicity associated with the store. Derek, I need that job. I didn't do anything wrong. I know, but it's out of my hands. I'm sorry. She hung up Both jobs gone now. She had $200 in her bank account and rent due in a week. David called that afternoon. Marcus has subpoenaed security footage from Palmer's Diner. He's analyzing every interaction between you and Eleanor. What's he looking for? Evidence of calculated behavior. He wants to show that you identified her as a target and cultivated a relationship over time. But I didn't. I barely remember seeing her. I know, but he's going to frame your normal waitress behavior, remembering orders being friendly, as manipulation. 2 days later, Marcus's legal team started interviewing Rachel's coworkers. Maria called her nervous. They asked me all these questions about you, about whether you treated Eleanor differently than other customers, about whether you seemed interested in money. I told them you're the kindest person I know, but they kept twisting everything I said. Frank called next. They interviewed me for an hour, asked about your tips, your work ethic, whether you ever talked about wanting money. Rachel, they're building a case that you're some kind of con artist. Rachel met David at his office. 3 days later, she hadn't slept in 48 hours. Dark circles under her eyes, hands that wouldn't stop trembling. David closed the door and sat across from her. I need to be honest with you about what we're facing. Marcus Chun has unlimited resources. He's brought in a team of 5 attorneys. They're interviewing everyone who knew Eleanor. They're reviewing her medical records going back 5 years. They're prepared to spend whatever it takes to win this case. And I have what? You. You have me, and you have the truth. But Rachel, truth doesn't always win. Not against money and power. So what do I do? David pulled out a folder. Marcus has made an offer. He'll settle for $500,000. You walk away. He gets the rest of the estate. The lawsuit disappears. Your name stays out of the press. $500,000. It's more money than you've ever had. Enough to pay off your debts, finish nursing school, start over somewhere else. Rachel stared at the settlement offer. $500,000. It was life-changing money. It was enough to escape, but something in her chest tightened. Can I see Eleanor's journal again? David handed it to her. She flipped through the pages, found an entry from 2 years ago. I watch people every day. Most of them are good. They help when it's easy. But I'm looking for someone who helps when it's hard. Someone who chooses compassion when it costs them. That's the person who deserves wealth. That's the person who will use it correctly. Another entry from a year ago. Lily believed the system was broken. She died fighting against people with money and power who use the law to protect themselves from consequences. I have spent 20 years watching that same system crush good people. If I leave my money to family who will hoard it, I have learned nothing from my daughter's death. I will find someone who will fight the way Lily fought. Rachel closed the journal. If I take the settlement, Marcus wins. He gets $8 million he'll use to save a law firm that protects rich people from consequences. That's exactly what Eleanor spent her life fighting against. Rachel, this isn't about justice. This is about survival. If you fight Marcus and lose, you get nothing. You'll spend years in court. Your reputation will be destroyed. You'll lose any chance at a normal life. Eleanor didn't choose me, so I could have a normal life. Rachel met David's eyes. She chose me because she thought I'd fight. If I take the settlement, I prove she was wrong about me. David was quiet for a long moment. There's something else you should know. Marcus's law firm lost a massive malpractice case 6 months ago. They were representing a pharmaceutical company in a wrongful death suit. The firm mishandled evidence. They lost. Now they owe $3.2 million in damages. So he needs this money. His firm is facing bankruptcy within 6 months. This isn't about honoring his aunt's memory or protecting family legacy. This is about financial survival. Marcus will do anything to win because he has no choice. Then we're the same. We both have no choice. Rachel stood. Tell Marcus the answer is no. I'm fighting. David looked at her like she was insane. Rachel, you understand what you're risking? Everything. Eleanor risked everything when she came to America with nothing. Lily risked everything fighting for people no one cared about. I'm not walking away because it's hard. That evening, David called with another update. Marcus is escalating. He's filed a motion to freeze the entire estate. You won't be able to access any funds until the case is resolved. That means no money for legal fees. I'm working pro bono for now, but if this goes to trial, we'll need expert witnesses, depositions, court costs. How much? Minimum $50,000. Probably more. Rachel had $200. I'll figure it out. The next week crawled by. The news coverage intensified. More stories. More comments. Rachel stopped reading them. Stopped watching TV. She existed in a strange bubble where her entire life had been reduced to a single question. Was she a good person or a con artist? 15 days after the lawsuit was filed, David called her to his office. There's something you need to see. I went through Eleanor's safe deposit box. There are documents you haven't seen yet. He handed her a photograph. Old, faded. A young woman standing outside a courthouse. She held a sign. Medical debt destroys families. The woman was beautiful, fierce, determined eyes that looked directly at the camera. That's Lily, David said. Eleanor's daughter. That photo was taken 3 weeks before she died. Rachel stared at the photograph. Lily was 29 in this picture. The same age Rachel was now. Same dark hair. Same intensity in her expression. Same determination. David handed her another photo. This is the photo Eleanor kept on her nightstand. It was Eleanor and Lily together. Lily at 29. Eleanor in her 60s. They were smiling, arms around each other. The love between them was visible in every detail. Eleanor didn't just find a kind person, David said quietly. She found someone who reminded her of her daughter. Same age, same fight, same refusal to let injustice stand. You're not just inheriting Lily's money. You're inheriting her mission. Rachel's hands trembled. She looked at Lily's photograph again. The sign, the courthouse, the medical debt crisis that Lily had died fighting against. The same crisis that had destroyed Rachel's life, crushed her mother, forced her to drop out of school. Eleanor hadn't chosen randomly. She'd chosen specifically, deliberately. Rachel wasn't a replacement for Lily. She was a continuation of her. What do I do now? Rachel whispered. You decide if you're willing to become what Eleanor believed you could be. Someone who fights for people the system has decided don't matter. Rachel looked at the photograph one more time. Lily's determined expression, the sign in her hands, the courthouse behind her. I already decided, Rachel said. Now I just have to prove I meant it. The deposition took place in a conference room on the 16th floor of a downtown Chicago office building. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Everything was glass and steel and expensive. Rachel sat at a long table with David on her left. Across from her were Marcus Chen and 4 other attorneys. A court reporter sat at the end, fingers poised over her machine. Marcus began at 9 a.m. His voice was calm, professional. Please state your full name for the record. Rachel M. Morrison. And your occupation? I was a waitress. I'm currently unemployed. Unemployed because of the allegations in this case? David leaned forward. Objection. Relevance. I'll rephrase. Marcus folded his hands. Ms. Morrison, how long did you work at Palmer's Diner? For years. And during those 4 years, did you serve Eleanor Chin? Yes, sometimes. I didn't know her name until after she died. But you remember serving her? Rachel hesitated. I remember serving a lot of people. I didn't keep track of specific customers unless they were regulars who came in frequently. Was Mrs. Chin a regular? I guess so. She came on Wednesdays. Marcus pulled out a folder. We have security footage from Palmer's Diner covering the 6 months before Mrs. Chen's death. In that footage, you served Mrs. Chen on 18 separate occasions. You brought her tea. You asked how she was doing. On 3 occasions, you sat in her booth and talked with her during slow periods. Does that refresh your memory? Rachel's chest tightened. I talked to a lot of customers. That's part of the job. So you're saying there was nothing special about your interactions with Mrs. Chen? Nothing that distinguished her from any other customer? No. Oh yes. I treated her like I treat everyone. Marcus played a video on a laptop. Security footage from Palmer's Diner, grainy but clear. Rachel watched herself bring tea to Eleanor's table. Watched herself smile. Watched herself say something that made Eleanor nod. The timestamp showed July 22nd, for months before Eleanor died. What are you saying to Mrs. Chun in this video? I don't remember. Probably asking how her day was. You don't remember? It was months ago. Marcus played another video. September 5th. Rachel sitting in Eleanor's booth during a slow afternoon, talking. The video had no sound, but Rachel could see herself gesturing, laughing. Eleanor watching her with that calm, evaluating expression. What were you discussing in this video? I don't know. Small talk, probably. Small talk. Marcus made a note. Ms. Morrison, let's discuss the day of November 13th. You helped Mrs. Chen carry groceries to her car. Is that correct? Yes. Your shift had just ended? Yes. And you had somewhere to be? I had my second job. At Stop and Go convenience store? Yes. What time did your shift there begin? 4 p.m. And you missed your bus by helping Mrs. Chen? Yes. So you were late to your second job? Yes. How late? About 45 minutes. And you were reprimanded for that tardiness? Rachel's jaw tightened. I was fired. You were fired. Marcus leaned back. So this act of kindness cost you your job? Yes. And yet you still helped Mrs. Chen. Why? Because she needed help. Even though it cost you your employment, I didn't know it would cost me my job when I decided to help. But you knew you'd be late? Yes. And you knew being late would have consequences? Yes. So you made a calculated decision to help Mrs. Chen despite the personal cost. Would you say that's accurate? Rachel saw the trap, but couldn't avoid it. I wouldn't call it calculated. I saw someone who needed help. Someone who then gave you a $5 tip? She insisted. I tried to refuse, but you accepted it. Yes. Did you complain to Mrs. Chen about missing your bus? I might have mentioned it. I don't remember. Marcus pulled out a piece of paper. We interviewed another customer who was in the parking lot that day. Mrs. Sandra Williams. She states, and I quote, the waitress told the old lady she was going to miss her bus. The old lady felt bad about it. That's why she gave her the money. Rachel's face burned. I wasn't trying to make her feel guilty. You were just establishing that your act of kindness came at a cost. Making sure Mrs. Chen understood you'd sacrifice something. Is that correct? No, that's not what happened. David touched her arm. Let's take a break. They stepped into the hallway. Rachel's hands were shaking. He's making it sound like I manipulated her. That's his job. Stay calm. Answer only what he asks. Don't volunteer information. The deposition resumed. Marcus introduced a new attorney, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes. Ms. Morrison, I'm Dr. Patricia Hendricks. I'm a neurologist specializing in dementia and cognitive decline. Rachel looked at David. He nodded slightly. Dr. Hendricks opened a file. I've reviewed Eleanor Chen's medical records from the 2 years before her death. I've also reviewed testimony from her primary care physician, Dr. Robert Chang. Mrs. Chen exhibited multiple symptoms consistent with early-stage dementia. She forgot appointments on 6 occasions. She repeated questions during medical visits. She showed confusion about dates and times. In my professional opinion, Mrs. Chen was experiencing cognitive decline that would have made her vulnerable to manipulation. Objection, David said. Dr. Hendricks never examined Mrs. Chen. This is speculation. I'm offering expert testimony based on medical records and established diagnostic criteria. Dr. Hendricks replied smoothly. Marcus leaned forward. Dr. Hendricks, in your professional experience, are elderly individuals with cognitive decline particularly vulnerable to younger people who show them kindness? Absolutely. Patients with early dementia often experience social isolation and loneliness. They're susceptible to attachment to sympathetic younger individuals who remind them of family members, particularly deceased children. Rachel's stomach dropped. They were going to argue that Eleanor had been too confused to know what she was doing, that Rachel had taken advantage of a sick, old woman's loneliness. The deposition ended at 3 p.m. 6 hours. Rachel felt hollowed out. Every interaction with Eleanor had been twisted into evidence of manipulation. Her kindness had been reframed as calculation. Her helping had been reframed as exploitation. David drove her home in silence. Finally, he said that was bad. I know. Marcus is building a narrative. A vulnerable elderly woman with dementia. Sympathetic younger waitress who reminds her of her dead daughter. Pattern of contact establishing trust. An act of kindness that creates obligation. Then The woman dies and leaves everything to the waitress. To a jury, that's going to sound like textbook undue influence. But it's not true. Truth is what we can prove. And right now, he's got medical experts, security footage, and witness testimony. What do we have? Eleanor's journal, which Marcus will argue was written by a woman with dementia who was being manipulated. Rachel stared out the window. So I'm going to lose. I don't know. Maybe. The media coverage exploded after the deposition. Someone had leaked details to the press. The headline on Channel 9 News read, "Waitress targeted dementia patient, expert testifies." The story went viral. National news picked it up. Rachel's face was everywhere. The comments online were vicious. She belongs in prison. Elder abuse is disgusting. She should be prosecuted criminally. These scammers target vulnerable seniors, and society just lets it happen. Palmer's Diner started receiving threats. Anonymous calls saying they'd burn the place down if they kept employing that woman who kills old people for money. Someone spray-painted scammer on the front window. Frank called Rachel the next morning. "I'm sorry, kid. I really am, but I've got employees I need to protect. Customers are scared to come in. I'm losing business. I need you to take a leave of absence." "For how long?" "Until this is over. However long that takes." Rachel hung up. She'd lost both jobs now. Her income was zero. 2 days later, her landlord knocked on her door. He held an envelope. "Rachel, I hate doing this. You've been a good tenant. But the other residents are complaining. They saw you on the news. They're uncomfortable. I'm giving you 30 days notice. You need to find somewhere else to live." She took the envelope without speaking. Eviction notice. 30 days. Her bank account showed $193. Rent was $800. She had no way to pay it. Nowhere to go. Marcus called David that afternoon with a new offer. David related to Rachel over the phone. He's lowered the settlement. $100,000. He says to take it before his next filing. He's about to introduce evidence that will destroy you. What evidence? He wouldn't say. $100,000. 3 months ago, that would have been a miracle. Now it felt like surrender. Rachel sat alone in her apartment that night. Cardboard boxes stacked in the corner. She'd started packing even though she had nowhere to go. Her nursing textbooks sat on top of one box, collecting dust. Her mother's photograph was on the table, smiling, healthy, before the cancer. Her phone buzzed. "Maria, I saw the news. I'm so sorry. Are you okay?" "I'm fine." "You're not fine. Come stay with me. I have a couch. You can stay as long as you need." Rachel's eyes burned. "Thank you." But even Maria's kindness felt like defeat. Rachel was 29 years old. No job, no home, no future. Fighting for money from a dead woman she barely knew. Was she insane? Was Marcus right? Should she just take the 100,000 and disappear? She could move to another city, change her name, start over. 100,000 would give her a few years to rebuild, finish nursing school somewhere far away where no one knew her face. The thought was tempting. So tempting. David showed up at her apartment the next morning. He looked exhausted. "I have something you need to see." The court released Eleanor's final journal entry. It was sealed until now. He handed her a single page. Eleanor's handwriting shaky but clear. "If you are reading this, Rachel, it means the battle has begun. Marcus will fight you. He will call you a liar and a thief. He will destroy your reputation. He will make you question whether you deserve this inheritance. I am writing this now while I am still alive and still certain of my decision, so that you know you deserve this. Not because you are perfect, not because you never make mistakes, but because you choose compassion when it costs you. That is the rarest quality in this world. That is what Lily had. That is what I have searched for. If you fight for this inheritance, you will prove you understand what Lily died trying to teach the world. That moral courage is the only wealth that matters. If you walk away, I will have failed to find someone worthy of carrying my daughter's legacy forward. I pray I have chosen correctly. I believe I have. But now it is your choice. Will you be the person I believe you are, or will you let fear win?" Rachel read it 3 times. Her throat was tight. She knew, Rachel whispered. She knew this would happen. She knew Marcus would fight. She knew it would cost you. And she chose you anyway. Rachel looked at the boxes. The eviction notice. The photograph of her mother. She thought about Lily standing outside that courthouse with her sign. Medical debt destroys families. Lily had fought a system that crushed people like Rachel's mother. And that system had killed her. But she fought anyway. Eleanor had spent her whole life watching that same system protect the powerful and ignore the powerless. And in her final months, she'd found someone she thought could carry Lily's fight forward. Rachel's jaw tightened. Call Marcus, she said. Rachel, call him. Tell him the answer is no. I'm not settling. I'm going to trial. David stared at her. You understand what you're risking? If you lose, you get nothing. You'll have legal debt you can't pay. Your reputation is already destroyed. This will make it permanent. Eleanor didn't choose me because I was safe. She chose me because she thought I'd fight. If I walk away now, everything she believed about me was wrong. This feels like jumping off a cliff. Then I guess I'm jumping. David was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. Okay, I'll file our response. We're going to trial. Rachel sat in the empty apartment after he left. The decision felt enormous, terrifying. She had no money, no home, no job. She was fighting a corporate attorney with unlimited resources for the right to inherit millions from a woman she'd barely known. It was insane, but it was also the only choice that let her look at herself in the mirror. She picked up the photograph of Lily, young, determined, standing outside that courthouse with her sign. I hope I'm strong enough, Rachel whispered to the photograph. I hope Eleanor was right about me. The photograph didn't answer, but somewhere, Rachel chose to believe it didn't have to. The trial began on a cold Monday morning in February. The courtroom was packed. News cameras lined the hallway outside. Rachel sat at the defendant's table with David, her hands folded in her lap. Across the aisle, Marcus Chun sat with his team of 4 attorneys, all in expensive suits. He looked confident, prepared, like a man who'd never lost. Judge Catherine Brennan entered. Everyone stood. She was in her 60s, gray hair, sharp eyes that missed nothing. Be seated. We're here for the matter of Chun versus Morrison, contesting the will of Eleanor Chun. Mr. Chun, you may present your opening statement. Marcus stood. He buttoned his jacket and approached the jury. 12 people, 7 women, 5 men, ages ranging from 25 to 70. They watched him with polite attention. Ladies and gentlemen, this case is about protecting our most vulnerable citizens. Eleanor Chun was 82 years old. She was alone. She was struggling with cognitive decline, and she was targeted by someone who saw an opportunity. Marcus gestured to Rachel. Rachel Morrison is a waitress. She served my aunt at Palmer's Diner for 6 months. She cultivated a relationship. She identified a lonely elderly woman with no close family. And when the moment was right, she executed a scheme that would result in an $8.3 million inheritance. He clicked a remote. The screen behind him lit up with security footage. Rachel serving Eleanor tea. Rachel sitting in Eleanor's booth talking. Rachel carrying grocery bags. Every interaction you see here was calculated. Ms. Morrison knew my aunt came to the diner alone every Wednesday. She knew my aunt was elderly and vulnerable. She established trust through months of small kindnesses, building toward a final act that would create obligation. That act was carrying groceries, a simple gesture that cost Ms. Morrison her bus ride and ultimately her second job. But that sacrifice was part of the plan. It made my aunt feel guilty. It made her feel indebted. Marcus displayed Eleanor's medical records. Dr. Patricia Hendricks, a neurologist, will testify that Eleanor Chun exhibited clear signs of dementia, forgotten appointments, repeated questions, confusion about dates. Eleanor was not competent to make decisions about an $8 million estate. But Ms. Morrison didn't care. She saw a vulnerable woman and she exploited her. He returned to the jury. His voice was grave. This isn't just about one inheritance. This is about protecting every elderly person in America from predators who target them for financial gain. If we allow this will to stand, we send a message that vulnerability can be exploited for profit. I ask you to reject Ms. Morrison's claim and return Eleanor Chun's estate to her rightful family. He sat down. Judge Brennan nodded. Mr. Walsh, your opening statement. David stood. He looked small compared to Marcus. His suit was older, less expensive, but his voice was steady. Your Honor, members of the jury, this case isn't about exploitation. It's about intention. Eleanor Chin was not a confused old woman who didn't know what she was doing. She was a deliberate, intentional person who spent the final months of her life searching for someone who embodied the values her daughter died fighting for. David held up Eleanor's journal. Eleanor kept detailed records. She watched Rachel Morrison for 6 months. She documented every act of kindness. Not the big, obvious ones. The small ones. The ones nobody witnesses. She was testing Rachel. And when Eleanor decided to test her one final time by struggling with groceries, Rachel passed. She helped even though it cost her. That's what Eleanor was searching for. David walked toward the jury. Mr. Chin will tell you Eleanor had dementia. He'll show you medical records of forgotten appointments. But forgetting an appointment doesn't mean incompetence. Eleanor managed her own finances until the day she died. She paid her bills, maintained her property, made careful investment decisions. She was sharp, and she knew exactly what she was doing when she left her fortune to Rachel Morrison. He pointed to Marcus. Mr. Chen's law firm is bankrupt. They owe over $3 million in malpractice damages. This case isn't about protecting Eleanor's legacy. It's about saving his business. Follow the money. Follow the motivation. And you'll see this lawsuit is the real exploitation. David sat. Rachel's heart pounded. Judge Brennan said, Mr. Chin, call your first witness. Marcus called Dr. Hendricks. She took the stand, swore in, and explained her credentials. Board-certified neurologist. 23 years of experience. Published researcher on dementia. Marcus walked her through Eleanor's medical records. In your expert opinion, did Eleanor Chin exhibit signs of cognitive decline? Yes. Clear signs of early-stage dementia. The forgotten appointments, the repetition, the confusion about dates. These are textbook symptoms. In your experience, are individuals with dementia vulnerable to manipulation? Absolutely, particularly by younger people who show them kindness. Patients with dementia often experience social isolation. They form attachments to sympathetic individuals who remind them of family members. These attachments can be exploited. In your opinion, was Eleanor Chin competent to make decisions about an $8 million estate based on the medical evidence? I have serious concerns about her testamentary capacity. David cross-examined. Dr. Hendricks, did you ever meet Eleanor Chin? No. Did you ever examine her? No. My opinion is based on medical records. Records showing forgotten appointments. How many appointments did Eleanor forget? 6 over 2 years. 6 appointments in 2 years. Is that unusual for an 82-year-old woman? Dr. Hendricks hesitated. It's within normal range for aging, but combined with other factors. What other factors? The repeating questions? How many times did she repeat questions? The records indicate multiple instances. How many? 3? 5? 10? The exact number isn't specified. So you're diagnosing dementia based on an unspecified number of repeated questions and 6 forgotten appointments over 2 years, combined with her age and the nature of the will. Yes. The nature of the will. You mean the fact that she left money to someone you think she shouldn't have? Objection, Marcus said. Argumentative. Sustained. David returned to his table. Dr. Hendricks stepped down. Marcus called neighbors, people who'd known Eleanor for years. They testified she sometimes seemed forgetful, that she'd occasionally repeated herself. But under David's cross-examination, they admitted she'd been independent, managed her own affairs, never needed assistance. Then Marcus called his financial expert, a man who analyzed Eleanor's estate planning history and testified that leaving everything to a stranger was inconsistent with 40 years of careful financial management. David's cross-examination was brief. Isn't it true that Eleanor Chin had no close family? No children? No siblings? Correct. And isn't it true that her only living relative, Marcus Chin, had minimal contact with her for over a decade? I don't have information about their relationship. So, when you say leaving her estate to a stranger is inconsistent, you're ignoring the fact that she had no close family to leave it to. I'm speaking only to financial patterns. Thank you. No further questions. Marcus presented his closing argument on day 3. He summarized the medical evidence, the financial analysis, the testimony from neighbors. He painted Rachel as a calculating predator. His final words were directed at the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, this is about protecting vulnerable seniors from exploitation. If you allow this will to stand, you send a message that it's acceptable to target elderly people for financial gain. Don't let that happen. Return Eleanor Chen's estate to her family. That's justice. He sat. Judge Brennan looked at David. Mr. Walsh, you may call your first witness. David stood. The defense calls Rachel Morrison. Rachel walked to the witness stand on shaking legs. She swore to tell the truth and sat. The courtroom felt enormous. All those eyes watching her. David approached with a gentle expression. Ms. Morrison, tell the jury about November 13th, the day you helped Eleanor Chen with her groceries. Rachel took a breath. My shift had just ended. I was walking to my car when I saw an elderly woman in the parking lot. She was struggling with grocery bags. Her hands were shaking. I almost kept walking. I was going to be late to my second job, but I couldn't. She needed help. Did you know who she was? No. I'd served her at the diner before, but I didn't know her name. I didn't know she had money. What happened after you helped her? She thanked me. She tried to give me $5. I said no, but she insisted. She said something about kindness deserving reward. Then she left. Were you late to your second job? Yes. I missed my bus. I was 45 minutes late. They fired me. So helping Eleanor cost you your job? Yes. David returned to his table. You're a witness. Marcus stood. He approached Rachel like a predator. Ms. Morrison, you testified you'd served Mrs. Chen before. How many times? I don't know exactly. Security footage shows 18 times over 6 months. Does that sound accurate? If that's what the footage shows, yes. And you knew she came alone? Rachel hesitated. I noticed she was usually alone, yes. You knew she had no family visiting? I didn't know anything about her family, but you observed she was alone. Elderly, vulnerable. I observed she was alone. I didn't think of her as vulnerable. You sat in her booth and talked with her on multiple occasions. During slow times, yes. I talked to lots of customers. But you developed a relationship with Mrs. Chen specifically. I was friendly with her, like I am with everyone. You identified a vulnerable target and waited for an opportunity to create obligation. No. Rachel's voice rose. I saw someone who needed help. Marcus smiled slightly. That's what you'd like us to believe. He returned to his table. Rachel stepped down, her legs weak. David stood. The defense calls Exhibits 17 through 39. Eleanor Chen's personal journals. A murmur ran through the courtroom. David approached the bench with a stack of journals. Judge Brennan examined them and nodded. Proceed. David opened the first journal. These are Eleanor Chen's private writings from the last 2 years of her life. With the court's permission, I'd like Ms. Morrison to read selected entries. Objection, Marcus said. Hearsay. These are the declarant's own writings regarding her state of mind and intentions. They're admissible under the state of mind exception. Judge Brennan considered. I'll allow it, but be selective, Mr. Walsh. David handed the journals to Rachel. She returned to the stand. Ms. Morrison, please read the entry dated June 18th. Rachel opened the journal. Her hands trembled. June 18th. Returned to Palmer's Diner. The waitress is young, efficient. She remembered the truck driver's name from last week. Small thing but noteworthy. I will keep watching. July 2nd entry. Watched the waitress train the new girl. Stayed 20 minutes past her shift, off the clock, to help her count the register. The manager pretended not to notice. The waitress didn't ask for credit. This is what I'm looking for. Someone who helps without witnesses. David nodded. Now read the entry from March 9th, 1998. Rachel flipped back through the pages. Found the older journal. Her breath caught as she read it silently first. Out loud, please. March 9th, 1998. They let him go. Lily is dead. And they let him go because his father is rich. The lawyers made it disappear. I sat in that courtroom and watched them turn my daughter's death into a negotiation. This is what wealth does. It protects people who deserve punishment. Lily spent her life fighting this system. She died because of this system. I will not let her death mean nothing. The courtroom was silent. Continued to the entry from April 2003. Rachel found it. April 2003. I am wealthy now. The investments have grown beyond what I imagined. But I will not leave this money to people who will hoard it. I will find someone who understands what Lily understood. That wealth is a responsibility. That it should protect the vulnerable, not the powerful. I don't know who that person is yet, but I will find them. David let the words hang in the air. One more entry. November 13th, the day before Eleanor died. Rachel's voice broke as she read, "Tomorrow I will test her. I will struggle with groceries in the parking lot at the exact time her shift ends. She will have to choose between helping me and catching her bus to her second job. If she helps when it costs her something real, I will know I found her. I've been searching for someone like my Lily. Someone who chooses compassion over convenience. Someone who helps without witnesses. Tomorrow I will know if Rachel Morrison is that person." Rachel looked up. Several jurors were crying. David approached the stand. "Ms. Morrison, why are you fighting for this inheritance?" Rachel's throat was tight. "Because Eleanor didn't just leave me money. She left me a responsibility. Her daughter Lily died fighting against medical debt. The same kind of debt that destroyed my life and killed my mother. Eleanor watched the legal system protect rich people and crush everyone else. She spent 20 years looking for someone who would use her money to fight that system. She chose me, and if I walk away, I prove she was wrong. What will you do with the inheritance if you win? Half of it will establish the Lillichin Foundation. Interest-free loans for families facing medical debt. The other half will fund nursing scholarships for students who had to drop out because of family emergencies. I'm not keeping this money for myself. I'm using it the way Eleanor wanted, to help people the system has decided don't matter." The courtroom gallery erupted. People whispered. A woman in the back row sobbed. Judge Brennan banged her gavel. "Order." David looked at the jury. Eleanor Chin didn't want her money going to someone who would hoard it. She wanted it going to someone who understood what it felt like to be crushed by systems that protect people with resources and ignore people without them. She found that person. Her name is Rachel Morrison. He sat down. Marcus stood for his rebuttal, but he looked shaken. His argument about blood and family suddenly felt hollow in the face of Eleanor's explicit intentions. He tried to reassert the dementia claim, but the journals had destroyed that narrative. Eleanor's writing was too clear, too deliberate, too intentional. Judge Brennan called a recess. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they returned, the forewoman stood. "We find in favor of the defendant, Rachel Morrison. We uphold the will as written by Eleanor Chin." The courtroom exploded. Rachel collapsed into David's arms, sobbing. Across the aisle, Marcus gathered his papers with mechanical precision. His face was blank. Judge Brennan banged her gavel. When silence fell, she spoke directly to Rachel. "Ms. Morrison, I've been a judge for 32 years. I've seen many inheritance disputes. This is the first time I've been convinced that the person fighting for the money actually deserves it less for what they'll gain than for what they'll do." Mrs. Chin was not incompetent. She was intentional. She spent the final months of her life identifying someone who would honor her daughter's legacy. This court will not substitute its judgment for a donor's clearly expressed wishes. The will stands. This case is closed. She banged her gavel one final time. Rachel walked out of the courthouse into a crowd of reporters. Cameras flashed. Microphones were shoved in her face. She didn't say anything. She just stood there in the February cold, holding Eleanor's journal, and cried. She'd won. Now came the hard part, proving Eleanor had been right about her. 6 months passed like a dream Rachel kept expecting to wake up from. She quit Palmer's Diner 2 weeks after the trial. Frank threw her a party on her last day. Maria cried. Tom brought his grandson Michael, fully recovered from surgery, to say thank you for all the times Rachel had asked about him. Rachel cried too, but they were different tears now. Not exhaustion, not defeat, relief. She enrolled at the University of Iowa's nursing program in March. full-time student. No double shifts. No bus routes memorized out of necessity. The Lily Chin Foundation paid her tuition through its scholarship program. The first recipient was its own founder. It felt strange at first, like cheating. David had laughed when she said that. Eleanor set aside money specifically for your education. She wanted you to finish what you started. That's not cheating. That's honoring her wishes. So Rachel became a student again at 29. She sat in lecture halls with people 7 years younger and absorbed everything like she was starving. Anatomy, physiology, pharmacology. The textbooks that had sat in her closet gathering dust were finally open on her desk, highlighted and annotated. She studied in coffee shops and university libraries, places she'd never had time to exist in before. The Lily Chin Foundation opened its doors in April. Rachel had rented a small office downtown, hired 2 staff members, and started processing applications. The mission was simple: interest-free loans for families facing medical debt. No credit checks. No income requirements. Just people who needed help in a system that had decided they didn't matter. In 6 months, they'd helped 47 families in Cedar Rapids. A single mother whose son needed surgery. An elderly couple drowning in prescription costs. A young man whose wife's cancer treatment had bankrupted them. Rachel reviewed every application herself. She read their stories and saw her own mother in every one. The medical bills, the impossible choices, the weight of a system designed to crush people who were already broken. The foundation was expanding. David had helped her establish chapters in Des Moines and Davenport. By next year, they'd be statewide. The money Eleanor had left was working exactly as she'd intended, protecting people the system ignored. Marcus Chen's law firm declared bankruptcy 3 weeks after the trial. Rachel had seen the news article. Chun and Associates closed its doors after 15 years. Marcus was working as a contract attorney, now, for a fraction of his previous salary. Part of her felt bad for him. Most of her didn't. He tried to destroy her to save himself. He lost. That was justice. Rachel visited Palmer's Diner every Wednesday at 3 p.m., not as an employee, as a regular. She ordered tea, sat in Eleanor's old booth by the window, and watched people. She understood now what Eleanor had been doing all those months, watching, looking for something specific, goodness that didn't perform for an audience. She saw it everywhere once she knew to look. Maria helping a confused elderly customer figure out the menu. Frank slipping free meals to people who look hungry. A teenager holding the door for a woman with a walker. Small acts, invisible acts, the kind of kindness that held communities together. Frank had installed a photograph on the wall above Eleanor's booth. Eleanor and Lily, young and smiling, arms around each other. The kind of love that was visible in every detail. Below it, a small brass plaque, in memory of Eleanor Chin, who believed in rewarding invisible kindness. Rachel touched the plaque every time she visited. A reminder, a promise. She was in her apartment one evening in August when David called. "I need you to come to my office tomorrow. There's something Eleanor left for you." I thought we'd gone through everything. So did I. But there was a secondary trust that only activated after the legal battle concluded. Eleanor's instructions were very specific. Rachel met him the next morning. David handed her a document. Trust fund established January 2024. Beneficiary, Rachel Morrison. Amount, $200,000. Purpose, personal use. Rachel stared at the number. "I don't understand. She already left me millions." David pointed to a note attached to the document. Eleanor's handwriting. "Rachel, this money is for you, not the foundation, not your education. You, buy a house, take a vacation, sleep in on Sundays. I watched you for 6 months, and you never did anything for yourself. You gave away tips you couldn't afford to lose. You worked when you should have rested. You chose everyone else over yourself every single time. This money is my way of saying you matter too. Use it, enjoy it, and never again choose between helping someone and making your bus. You've earned the right to do both." Rachel's vision blurred. She sat in David's office and cried. Eleanor had been dead for 8 months. She was still taking care of Rachel, still protecting her, still making sure she'd be okay. She thought of everything, Rachel whispered. She had a lot of time to plan, David said gently. and she spent it all making sure you'd be taken care of. Not just financially, emotionally. She wanted you to know you deserve care too. Rachel folded the note carefully, put it in her purse next to the photograph of Lily she carried everywhere now. Two women she'd never really known, but who'd changed her entire life. One through her death, one through her legacy. She'd learned what Eleanor was teaching. Wealth wasn't about accumulation. It wasn't about security or status or power. It was about recognizing goodness and rewarding it. About watching for people who helped when nothing was owed and making sure their kindness didn't cost them everything. Eleanor had watched Rachel. Now Rachel was watching others, carrying forward the mission. The inheritance wasn't the money. It was the lesson. Rachel left David's office and drove to Palmer's Diner, sat in Eleanor's booth, ordered tea, looked out the window at the parking lot where everything had started. A woman parked her car, elderly, struggling with a cane. She opened her trunk and stared at the bags inside like they were an impossible obstacle. Rachel watched a young man in a construction vest notice her, watched him walk over without being asked, watched him carry her bags to her car, help her into the driver's seat, refuse payment when she tried to offer it. The woman drove away. The young man went back to his truck. Rachel pulled out her phone, called the foundation office. "Sarah, I need you to track down someone for me." Young man, mid-20s, construction worker, was just in the Palmer's Diner parking lot helping an elderly woman. "I want to send him a foundation scholarship. If he's in school or wants to be, we're paying for it." She hung up, smiled. Eleanor would have approved. The inheritance kept growing, not in money, in moments like this, in people helped, in kindness rewarded, in a system that was changing one person at a time. Rachel finished her tea, left a $20 bill on the table, triple the cost, with a note for Maria, for the next person who needs it. She walked out into the afternoon sunshine and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Rachel stood in the Palmer's Diner parking lot on a Wednesday afternoon at 3 p.m. 6 months had passed since the trial. A year since she'd first helped Eleanor. The anniversary felt significant. Sacred almost. She watched a young mother struggle with a stroller and 3 bags of groceries. The baby was crying. The woman looked exhausted. That specific kind of tired that came from working too hard for too little while trying to keep everything together. Rachel knew that exhaustion, had lived it for years. She crossed the parking lot. "Can I help you with those?" The woman looked up. Relief flooded her face. "Oh my God, yes. Thank you. I can't. I'm trying to get him in the car, but I can't hold everything at once." Rachel loaded the groceries into the trunk while the woman buckled the baby into his car seat. The crying stopped. The woman straightened, pushed hair out of her face. "Thank you so much. I don't know what I would have done." "You would have figured it out," Rachel said. "But I'm glad I could help." She pulled a business card from her wallet. The Lily Chin Foundation logo. Contact information. Mission statement. If you're dealing with medical bills you can't pay, call this number. We help families with medical debt. Interest-free loans. No strings attached. The woman took the card, stared at it. "Seriously? Seriously. My son had surgery last month. The bills are," her voice broke. "I don't know how I'm going to pay them. Call us. We'll help." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "Why would you do this?" Rachel thought of Eleanor, of Lily, of her mother, of every person who'd been crushed by a system that protected the powerful and ignored everyone else. "Because someone helped me when I needed it. Now, I'm helping you." The woman hugged her. Rachel hugged back. They stood in the parking lot holding each other like strangers who understood the same pain. Then the woman got in her car and drove away, the foundation card clutched in her hand. Rachel returned to the diner, walked inside. The lunch rush was over. A few regulars scattered in booths. Maria waved from behind the counter. "Hey, want your usual booth?" "Please." Rachel slid into Eleanor's booth. The photograph hung on the wall above her head. Eleanor and Lily, frozen in time, young, hopeful, believing the world could be better. Frank had installed the plaque below it after the trial. Brass, engraved, in memory of Eleanor Chen, who believed in rewarding invisible kindness. Customers asked about it sometimes. Frank told them the story. A woman who'd watched and waited and found exactly who she was looking for. Maria brought tea without being asked. You doing okay? Yeah, I'm good. School going well? Really well. I'm actually enjoying it this time. When you're not exhausted and terrified, learning is kind of amazing. Maria smiled. I'm proud of you. We all are. Rachel opened her laptop. The Foundation's application portal. 3 families needed help this week. A single father whose daughter needed emergency dental surgery. An elderly couple facing eviction because of prescription costs. A young woman whose mother's cancer treatment had bankrupted her. Rachel read their stories. Saw herself in every one. Saw her mother. Saw Eleanor. Saw Lily. She approved all 3 applications. Typed notes to Sarah at the office. Fast-track these. They need help now, not next month. Closed her laptop. She sat in the booth and looked out the window at the parking lot. The same parking lot where she'd made a choice that changed her life. Where she'd chosen to help even though it cost her. Where Eleanor had been watching, testing, searching for exactly that moment. Rachel understood now what inheritance really meant. It wasn't money passed through bloodlines. It wasn't property or investments or legal documents. It was values passed through intentional choice. Eleanor had inherited Lily's mission. Rachel had inherited both of theirs. And someday, someone would inherit Rachel's. The chain didn't break. It transformed. Maria brought her check. Rachel pulled out a $20 bill. Left it under her empty teacup. Triple the cost of tea. Wrote a note on the receipt. For the next person who needs it. Maria would find it later. Would smile. Would use it exactly as Rachel intended. Buying lunch for someone who looked hungry. Covering a bill for someone counting change. Passing on the kindness to someone who needed it. That's how the inheritance worked. Not hoarded. Not spent on luxuries. Passed forward. Multiplied. Transformed into more kindness than one person could ever create alone. Rachel stood. Touched Eleanor's photograph one more time. Whispered, I hope I'm making you proud. The photograph didn't answer. But somewhere deep in her chest, Rachel felt certain Eleanor was watching. Still testing. Still protecting. Still believing Rachel was exactly who she'd been searching for. Rachel walked out of Palmer's Diner into the afternoon sunshine. A nursing student. A foundation director. A person who'd been given a mission and chosen to accept it. She got in her car, a modest sedan, nothing fancy. Eleanor would have approved, and drove toward campus. She had studying to do, families to help, a legacy to honor. The waitress who'd carried groceries was gone. In her place was someone stronger. Someone who understood that the greatest inheritances weren't listed in wills. They were written in the choices people made when no one was watching. And Rachel Morrison chose compassion. Every single day, Eleanor Chin taught Rachel Morrison that the greatest inheritances aren't listed in wills. They're written in the choices we make when no one's watching. Sometimes the people who deserve wealth most are the ones who never expected to receive it. And sometimes a simple act of carrying groceries can change not just one life, but hundreds. In the year since Rachel won her inheritance, the Lily Chin Foundation has helped 83 families in Iowa escape medical debt. Rachel graduated from nursing school with honors. She works part-time at a community clinic serving uninsured patients. She still visits Palmer's Diner every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Still orders tea. Still watches for people who help without expecting reward. The inheritance keeps growing, not in money, though the foundation's endowment is carefully managed and expanding, in impact, in lives changed, in a ripple effect that spreads further every day. Eleanor spent her final months searching for someone who would use wealth the way her daughter had wanted to use it. She found that person carrying groceries in a diner parking lot, and that person proved Eleanor's faith was justified. Sometimes the world rewards kindness. Sometimes it doesn't. But people like Rachel Morrison keep choosing compassion anyway, because they understand what Eleanor and Lily understood. That moral courage is the only wealth that truly matters. That helping people the system has decided don't matter is the work that matters most. If this story reminded you that ordinary kindness holds extraordinary power, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you want more true stories about people who chose compassion over convenience, subscribe. Because these are the stories that prove the world isn't as broken as we sometimes fear.